Welcome to the Monday, May 19th, 2025 meeting of the Dennis-Yarmouth Regional School Committee. May I have a motion to enter executive session?
The Dennis-Yarmouth Regional School Committee will enter into executive session to return to public session to conduct strategy sessions in preparation for negotiations with non-union personnel or contract negotiations with non-union personnel. Superintendent.
Second.
We have a motion and second. We have a roll call vote. Mr. Morris? Mr. Martin? Ms. Landers? Ms. Bemis? And I vote aye. We will return after following discussion in executive session. We'll reopen the meeting. Thank you. Welcome back. Please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. I will pick that up in a second. As we came back from executive session, we will start with report and discussions, and we're going to start with Director of Finance and Operations, Dr. Smith.
All right, thank you. So I have, actually, I'm going to go up to the podium. Just give me. All right. So I have the privilege of introducing Dr. Susan Gilson to the committee tonight. The committee voted to appoint Dr. Gilson at our last meeting, the meeting before, to our Director of Finance and Operations position, and she's able to join us tonight at the meeting. I didn't sort of hit some of her resume highlights at the last meeting, so I just wanted to hit a couple of resume highlights before having her come up and just say a couple words, maybe answer any questions that the committee might have. Dr. Gilson has two bachelor degrees, one in music education and then one in engineering. So, and as you'll see, as I sort of, there'll be a theme here of really a diverse background that Dr. Gilson brings to DY. She's got a graduate degree from the University of Hartford, and then a doctorate degree from the University of Connecticut, a PhD. And then from her experience and background, often, I shouldn't say often, but it's not atypical to get a person in a director role who's followed a very finance-centric background all the way up and through. And while she is currently serving as the Director of Administration and Finance for the Lunenburg Public Schools, Dr. Gilson has also served as an assistant principal, a principal. She's been a teacher. She's served as assistant superintendent on the curriculum and instruction side. So, in speaking to her references, they spoke highly of her depth of understanding of the finance decisions that she was making, because she has served in all of those roles through an entire school district, so that when she makes decisions from a finance background, that she thoroughly understands the impact throughout the entire system, because she has served so many different roles inside of a school system and a school district. So without any further ado, I'd like to welcome and introduce Dr. Gilson.
I want to say it's my pleasure to be here in front of you all tonight. I had several outstanding meetings. Miss Lopes chaired the first committee that I interviewed with, and I found an exceptional group of people that I was able to relate to, understand, and they asked some very thoughtful, strategic questions. My second interview was with an outstanding superintendent, and I had a chance, what he asked me to do for the second interview was prepare a high-level analysis of the budget based on 3 years of fiscal data. So I did that, and we had quite a conversation, and I'm looking forward to the future growth of this district and being a part of that. And I appreciate all of you, and thank you very much for the warm welcome. And if anybody has any questions, please feel free.
Thank you so much, and welcome. Does anyone have any questions? I don't believe so, seeing none. Thank you so much. We look forward to working with you.
I do too. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have our student representative report from Ms. DeBreo and Ms. Powers last day.
Hi, everybody. I just want to say thank you so much for all of your support and all of the connections I've made over the past 2 years. This is my last meeting because our next meeting is during prom, and I can't really miss my senior prom to be here, unfortunately. But I'm very, very grateful, and you guys have been so kind to me and made this place a real community, so thank you. Speaking on that, we have our prom and senior week coming up because Ava and I both won't be at the next meeting. She's also attending prom. So we have prom and senior week coming up from the 2nd to the 7th. So prom is kicking it off on Monday night, and then we have all of our senior events, senior last assembly Friday the 6th, and then graduation the 7th. So very, very exciting. And as of now, we have our mock crash planned for this week on Friday, which I think was just confirmed because last week there was a little problem with our AP Psych exam because APs were supposed to end on Friday the 16th, but College Board had like a nationwide issue with their testing and it got moved, and initially it was supposed to take place this Friday, so there was kind of concern about the mock crash, but we were just informed that students now have a choice of taking it either this Wednesday or next Wednesday, so we should be all set with that. And besides that, we just have our spring sports wrapping up, and our seniors' last day is on the 30th with finals next week.
All right. So it was track, right? So track got second at the MSTCA Division 5 state relays. 10th grade math MCAS was going on. And then we have Civics Day, Wednesday the 21st. Civics Day, it's our second annual one, and lots of grades and classes will be attending, and it's the like CAP projects, and what does that even stand for?
It's like the capstone project. So
Yeah.
in 8th grade and your junior year, you have to do like an overarching project. It's like what we talked about with Miss Williams' project for school committee. Each history class and civics class in 8th grade and 11th grade have to create a project, and then on civics day on Wednesday, everyone will go to the gym at different times, and 8th grade will present all their projects and have people come in and talk about them, and then the same thing later in the day for the juniors.
I don't even know that much about it, and I'm doing one, so hopefully that goes okay. All right, and then we've got a college field trip, college fair at Bridgewater on the 29th. We have like a showcase / talent show next Wednesday, and then the Pops concert as well. That's all. Thank you.
Well, we all just wanted to say thank you, Isabella, for all that you have done. It's been an amazing 2 years. It's so crazy to think about when you first joined us and to see that you're graduating and leaving us already. Time really has flied. We've appreciated your input, your humor, your smile. So many times we're recognizing achievements of the school, and you're part of those achievements. So it's great to be able to recognize you during some of those things. We look forward, with those conversations we had about Miss Williams' class of, continuing the communication, because, the communication between all of us and the students is important. And we think that you've done a great job with that. And we just look to see what more we can do to get input from students of all levels. Obviously the oldest, the ones that are most involved, but to see what we can do. So I know all of us have a heartfelt thank you. And I'll allow anyone else that wanted to speak. Mr. Glenn?
Yeah, I just wanted to point out two things, and I think you're integral in that communication to the community. But a lot of people don't know, they don't watch town meeting, whatever. But it's the first time that I've seen when they pointed out the accomplishments, when Tomas and the superintendent pointed out, I'd never heard an applause at Yarmouth Town Meeting like they got this year. And because of the communication that comes from you, that we get, that we can communicate back. They talked about the track team. They talked about the accomplishments. They even mentioned BC. And so I'm going to be rooting, except when they play UMass, I'll be rooting for the Eagles. So good luck, be safe, and Boston's my city. So you'll do well. We know you will. And then one more thing. Please come back. We say that to everybody, and sometimes life goes on, and we understand that. But please come back and let us know how you're doing.
Anybody? Okay. Well. So thank you for all that you've done. You know, we know that because all of our student representatives have all also been in theater and music and sports, it's hard to be here. We know with finals it's hard too, and school in general. So we appreciate your dedication over the 2 years. And we look forward to next year with you, Ava, and next year's representative that joins us next year. So thank you. And next we have a presentation from Calmer Choice for our end-of-year report and discussion on our partnership. Just make sure the green light's lit. If you push the push button, the green light should
Oh,
light.
yes, now it's on. Hi, everybody. Thanks for having us. We have come for every year to present on what we've done this year. And so we just want to just give a little update on our 13-year partnership with DY. I'm Stephanie Goley, for those of you who don't know me. Many of you probably know Calmer Choice. We're a nonprofit here on Cape Cod. We've been around since 2010, and we've been supporting children and adults here on Cape Cod with mindfulness-based education programs. And it's with great sadness that we share, and many of you probably already know, that Calmer Choice is closing its operations as of June 30th this year. So that is very sad for all of us in so many ways, and we've loved our time here at DY, so we just wanted to sort of recap and thank you all for letting us be here. This is a brief history that's not all-encompassing. The words would have gotten way too small for a slide to put everything on here, but we started at Ezra Baker in 2012. They adopted us as part of their innovation school status. That evolved into doing research with Tufts and Yale, and being in all of the elementary and middle schools at one point. I didn't put in the big C word in there. Oh, I did put that COVID was in there. That a lot changed, during COVID. We were able to do some virtual delivery during that time to try things out, but it was a challenge. And then we also started a course for educators that's been hugely popular and successful, and is one of the things that brings me the most joy in this position is teaching that class to teachers. And then we had the mindfulness coach pilot that I participated in 2022 to 2024. So we've had a really rich history with you all, and we just wanted to honor and acknowledge that. So for this year alone, the 24-25 school year, we've reached 1,450 students in 79 classrooms. 9 educators took the 8-week Mindfulness for Educators course. 21 educators participated in 8-week mindfulness circles. Numbers are great, but I always think the words of people really tell the story. So here are some quotes from a few teachers after the 8-week classroom program. The Calmer Choice program has been a really good way to support students in navigating their feelings, focus their attention, and learn about their thoughts and the way their brains work. Our Calmer Choice lessons help me reset myself and therefore the classroom climate. Reminders to breathe and to check in with myself become second nature as we practice. I don't know what I'm going to do without you, but I know I will continue to practice mindfulness with my students. And this is a program that I personally believe so strongly in. I see the impact on the students and myself. Ooh, that was a little fast. The overall impact, these numbers are estimates, trying to go back for 13 years and calculate things, not exact, but 13 years, 15,000 students, and over 825 teachers involved in the programming that we've done together. Here's another great quote we got from a first grade teacher this year. For many students over the years, I've seen a sense of calm and empowerment during lessons. I believe the messages the kids receive are not typical in their lives. Calmer Choice is planting positive self-care skills and messages about how important and valid their feelings are. And we don't want to take up too much time, but I do want to read one quote. I shared that this educator course is one of the best parts of my job, and seeing how people shift and change during this course is really impactful. And if a person wants to get PDPs or graduate credit from this course, they have to write a reflection, which is a really great way for me to see what they got from the course. A lot of times you don't know. They take a course and then it's over and you don't know how impactful it was. And every single course, I would always tell my colleagues, you have to read this reflection. You have to read this reflection. There's just so much in it. So this is a snippet that I'm using with permission from a teacher. I pulled out 2 actually, but I don't want to take too much time. And this is just part of her reflection, and she gave me permission to use it. Trauma was a really powerful source of emotional and physical blockage for me, and the great difficulties and misfortune had altered my thinking and ability to be clear. Practicing mindfulness has proven to be the greatest source for me to be more resilient in the face of adversity. I believe that this knowing will benefit me as a high school educator for both my own well-being and the well-being of my students. It is a most challenging time for many and warrants an understanding and sympathetic listener. I do lead by example and create a non-judgmental, comfortable, and kind environment in my classroom. Students seem to really appreciate this vibe, and I am reciprocated with much respect, kindness, and positive relationships. I believe this practice and attitude has helped me to really embrace being a mindful educator and has helped me to use my curriculum course content as a portal to address and assist myself, students, and even colleagues toward a more peaceful and connected community. So I thought that was really lovely, and I have tons of these, and they're really special to share. And Sarah's going to share a little bit more about our impact.
Last slide, it's really quick. I'm Sarah Mannion, the Executive Director of Commerce Choice, and I wanted to finish this out also to just thank Stephanie Goley. She has invested her heart and soul, particularly in DY, and the relationships she's made here, we hear about all the time. And so I'm just so grateful to you, Steph, for all that you've done here. And as we finish and wrap up our time, what are the key learnings and takeaways that we've had being here? I think the first learning for us is that self-awareness and self-regulation is foundational to student well-being. And we've also learned that mindfulness supports teacher efficacy. And so it's this relationship between the students being well and also the teachers being able to do the job that they wish to do. And then this third piece, that school culture is key to sustainable integration of mindfulness, and I would say vice versa. If the culture is supportive of this kind of work, then mindfulness will be naturally integrated. And if the integration is complete, then the school culture will shift. And we've seen that over and over and over again in schools that it's worked and schools that it's not worked quite as well. And then the final thing that I want to say is that we truly believe that this is a practice and not a program. And that feels like good news for DY, because while the program is no longer going to be here, the practice that's been established by so many over this time will remain. And I'm really excited for that. And we will see what happens with the next steps of Commerce Choice. As Stephanie mentioned, we are closing our operations on June 30th, but we're retaining our 501c3 status to just explore what might happen in the future. And so on that note, we are having an organizational farewell and a celebration of life we'd like to invite you all to. It's on Monday, June 9th at Scargo Cafe from 3 to 5 p.m. It's a public, just drop-in celebration. Please come if you can. And again, we just want to thank you. We are going to donate a set of our books, curriculum books, to each and every school in DY so that that will remain available in your libraries. So thank you again.
Thank you, ladies, so much. On behalf of the over 15,000 students and all the teachers, I know my son talked about it every day. He had it. I remember being in the school earlier before it started for some book fairs and hearing the announcement that teachers on their way to the library for their mindfulness, and just to think about all of the people that you touched, with all the things going on in the world, to be able to, give another way for teachers to look at how some of the students may be coming from, or just giving that student a way to self-heal, right? Giving them a way and tips and tools to maybe figure it out themselves rather than acting out in aggression. I've seen in, the 6 years my kid's been in school what it's done for him, and can only imagine over the 13 years. We know this is goodbye for now, and I know all of us here in the community, look forward to what the future has for you. I don't want to say it's over. I feel like there's opportunity. So we wish you both best luck and send a great feel of gratitude and thank you for all that you guys have done for us.
Thank you.
So thank you. Yes, Ms. Landers.
Yeah, I sort of have calmer choice to blame for being on the school committee for the last 9 years. I started coming to school committee meetings when there was controversy over Calmer Choice being in our district, and that's when I started coming to meetings, and that's what prompted me to run for school committee. So we kept, and Calmer Choice in our district, and my son started at Ezra Baker in 2014 was his first year at Ezra Baker. So, and he always talked about it, as, Tomas was saying, his son as well. My son gets an IV infusion every 6 weeks. And I remember early on him talking about using 5-finger breathing to get through the needle insertion of the IV. So, we have, so much to thank you for personally and as a district. And, no one wanted to see this end. That was probably such a, I know nobody's getting that email from you all that morning was so hard, and I can't imagine how hard it was for you all to have to send that email. So I think there are a lot of opportunities to continue your work in our community, and I hope we can all have a conversation about that, because this is critical work for our students. So thank you so much for everything you've done.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have a 6 to 8 ELA curriculum update from Ms. Santini.
Good evening, and thank you for allowing me the opportunity to share with you the work completed by the Curriculum Review Committee for the English Language Arts in grades 6 through 8. You may recall from previous presentations by myself and my colleague Betsy Pontius that there has been an emphasis from the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education that districts are providing all students with equitable access to high-quality, standards-aligned instructional materials. High-quality instructional materials provide a strong foundation for all students, particularly those from historically underserved groups like students with disabilities and multilingual learners, to have access to content, texts, tasks, and practices that enable them to excel at grade level or beyond. These materials support teachers to make learning real-world relevant and interactive for their students, while also providing data-informed, individualized supports through evidence-based practices that are inclusive and culturally and linguistically sustaining to cultivate deeper learning. So in order to determine which curricular resources meet the criteria established, DESE created the Curate project with the goal of making it easier for schools and districts to lay a foundation of great curriculum materials in every classroom, so that teachers can focus on making those materials work for every student. For a program to be considered, a publisher must submit their core curriculum for a robust and rigorous review by Curate panel using a rubric divided into 3 categories: alignment to the Massachusetts standards, supports for all students, and teacher usability. Once the review is completed, a draft report is assembled and shared with the publisher for an opportunity to submit a rebuttal on any factual inaccuracies and prepare a written response. Finally, that report is finalized and released on the DESE website for districts to use as part of their curriculum review process. When we hear the word curriculum, we often envision the textbooks that we used to cover with brown paper shopping bags, you know what I'm talking about, and that we lugged back and forth from school to home. Put stickers on them, decorated them, right. These were sometimes referred to as a basal and had their start in the 1860s when one text was used to teach every student in the class. Education has come a long way in determining what materials and practices should be implemented to teach students. DESE defines curriculum as the sequence of student learning experiences that teachers facilitate using curricular materials as a foundation, not a script. A high-quality curriculum contains both the resources and the learning experiences, aligned to content standards, organized in a systematic and comprehensive manner, and includes scaffolds for all learners to ensure equitable access. So in an effort to ensure that we selected the highest quality instructional materials that were aligned with district goals and the needs of our students, it was vital that we followed a thoughtful and deliberate process. At the superintendent's suggestion and in alignment with the strategic objective number 2, which is to establish consistent district-wide systems to support organizational effectiveness, in this case, to support student learning, I created a formalized curriculum resource adoption process. And that complete document can be found on the district website under the Office of Instruction tab. This slide provides you with an overview of the steps followed in selecting the curricular resource for English Language Arts in grades 6 through 8. So, since I began teaching grade 6 in 1992, teachers in grades 4 through 12 relied on a community book list. And those books were assigned to each grade level and were typically award-winning texts, often found on book lists of districts across the country. And over the years, that list would be reviewed and revised to provide students with thoughtful exposure to a variety of text types and reflective of the expectations set forth by the curriculum frameworks. And for many years, this seemed to work. Units were built, materials were procured, and students were taught. But as the demands of what proficiency at each grade level looked like increased, student achievement began to decline. It had become clear that the learning experiences our students were having were not aligned with the standards or rigorous enough to meet the expectations at each grade level. A significant change had to be made. To ensure that we had the necessary buy-in from the stakeholders, a team was assembled to include teachers at each grade level and administrators. Using the results from the data analysis of MCAS and MAP growth, the team was able to identify what was of greatest importance to them when considering a middle school literacy program. Using the criteria set, I created a rubric that would be used to evaluate the programs chosen for review. The team explored available options in both Curate and Ed reports and narrowed the field down to 5 potential programs. I invited each publisher to send resource samples and then present them to the committee. Committee members shared the sample resources with their colleagues for feedback. Follow-up questions were asked of the publishers to provide better clarity, and the pros and cons of each contender were debated until consensus was reached. I'd like to take a moment to thank the committee for their commitment and perseverance in following the process through. Kendra Bennett, principal at DY High, Mike Bavino, principal at DYM, Stephanie Balboni, the English department chair and 8th grade teacher, Alyssa Martin, grade 8 teacher, Karen Purcell, grade 7, Allison Cochin, grade 6, and Dawn Trainer, reading teacher at the middle school. Megan McDonald, the multilingual education coordinator, and Maria Lopes, assistant superintendent of student services and instruction, were also invited to attend the publisher presentations to provide their input and ensure the program chosen was accessible to all learners. In order to meet our goal of selecting a high-quality instructional resource for implementation next year, a rigorous timeline was set, and the committee worked diligently to meet the goals of each agenda, which allowed us to stay on schedule and complete the process on time. As a part of establishing the criteria to guide us through the selection process, the committee collaborated on setting a vision for instructional excellence in middle school literacy that would anchor our work. The purpose of our vision statement is to communicate the expectations for teaching and learning, serve as a shared language and decision-making framework for this significant investment of time and money, and provide a common space for dialogue about what effective instruction looks like. The foundation of our vision for middle school literacy is based on the 4 categories that our criteria fell under. 1, it should have real-world relevance and connections. 2, it should be student-centered. 3, it should encourage students to be independent thinkers, readers, and writers. And finally, it should include responsible skill development and measurable learning outcomes. As I mentioned earlier, the committee narrowed down the pool of contenders to 5 programs: Amplify ELA, Houghton Mifflin Harcourt into Literature, Expeditionary Learning Education, Common Lit 360, and American Reading Company Core Fusion. Each publishing team walked the committee through the background, history, and guiding principles of their program. They shared their scope and sequence of units and standards alignment, the elements of lesson design, supports and scaffolds for both students and teachers, and the functionality of their program. We were able to view each program both as a student and as a teacher to assess its usability and engagement factor. The committee was able to see the diverse text students would be reading, the daily opportunities to practice writing in each genre for varying purposes, and how the assessments inform teachers on progress towards proficiency on each standard for every student. After each presentation, the committee used the rubric to debrief, scoring the program on each criteria. After all of the programs had been reviewed, the committee members were asked to make their recommendation and cite specific examples from the program and rubric language to support their choice. They were also asked to go back into the resources provided and complete a series of tasks. Review the year-long scope and sequence, choose one unit to review how it was organized, review 2 to 3 lessons in that unit to understand how the lessons were organized and how the curriculum builds knowledge across lessons towards the unit goals, choose an activity or assessment from one of those lessons to understand the level of rigor expected of our students, and review the resources that support teacher planning. Recommendations had to be submitted prior to our May 1st meeting, when the results would be shared and the decision-making process would commence. The committee had agreed to consensus as our decision-making approach, meaning that it would be the majority opinion or general agreement. This gave each member the opportunity to share their reasoning and explain their choice using specific examples from the program as it related to our rubric. Of the 6 voting members, 5 chose Amplify ELA, and there was 1 vote for Common Lit 360. To ensure that we had indeed reached consensus, we discussed the reasons for having chosen Common Lit 360 and how any reservations that particular grade level may have regarding Amplify ELA would be addressed moving forward so that every stakeholder was heard. And this slide summarizes the reasons why the committee chose Amplify ELA to recommend for adoption. And I want to share just a few direct quotes from their submissions to further support our choice. The various ways Amplify presents the curriculum shows that they understand the middle school child of today. The variety of methods provided to engage students, including the video clips and various skill-based games, meets our students where they are. The engagement factor is important in today's classroom. Our research has shown that multiple modalities of presenting information cast a wide net to include all learners who may be struggling with new concepts. Through the use of videos, Learning Quest, and the vocabulary app, students will have multiple entry points to learn and show their knowledge. It enhances the capacity for students to view concepts, issues, and events from other perspectives of diverse groups, including race, ethnicity, language, and ability. The ELA standards are addressed in a way that builds within the unit within multiple lessons that increase rigor as the students progress towards demonstrating mastery of each standard. Uses a mix of fiction texts along with nonfiction, excerpts, primary documents, and other investigations to teach students how to analyze information critically, which will help them in the real world. And finally, uses closed reading activities to analyze text, independent reading to use taught skills, an app that reinforces vocabulary acquisition, and access to a fluent reader voice to help students improve their reading skills. So news of the selection was announced to educators connected to grades 6, 7, and 8 on May 1st. Tonight, I am sharing our recommendation for adoption in the hopes that the school committee will approve our request for a 5-year contract with Amplify. Upon the committee's approval, the materials will be ordered. And then, through the Partnership for Reading Success, otherwise referred to as PRISM, a grant is available to support literacy achievement in grades 4 through 12. The grant provides funding for the purchase, launch, and implementation of high-quality instructional materials in ELA literacy so that students experience relevant, real-world literacy learning aligned with high expectations. If we are awarded the grant, funds may be used to pay for 50% of the cost of the materials, leadership coaching and consultation from a DESE-approved curriculum and instruction coach to support implementation, professional learning to support evidence-based, inclusive, and culturally and linguistically sustaining implementation of the new curriculum materials, and stipends for the PRISM Curriculum Council members who will work together with the instruction coach to coordinate and enact the multi-year work of implementation. Finally, and hopefully with the help of an instruction coach, I will work with the PRISM Curriculum Council to create a 3-year implementation plan. Questions?
Thank you. Any questions from the committee? It's on.
Okay. I understand the process, and you met the goal, all of you collectively. This was a commitment, when you presented to us in December and you met it. So I thank you for that, and I see the process. I'm wondering, one of the other things that was mentioned in your December presentation was sort of attention or recognition of writing prompts and instruction around writing examples. Does this provide any of this, or would you still be?
It does.
It
I mean,
does?
yeah, it does.
The other question I have, maybe this would be sort of your September, October report, but, you know, if you have the materials, it's also, one has to consider the transition and skillful adaptation by all, this would be grades 6, 7, and 8. So that's a lot of faces that need to get comfortable with it. So how might sort of literary coaches be used? Are you going to?
So that'll be part of the implementation planning. If we are awarded the grant, we'll be partnered with a provider that comes in and works with myself, principals, coaches around that implementation plan, and then follows, can be up to 3 years of implementation. The Amplify itself also does provide support. So there'd be PD, full day PD for the teachers in grades 6, 7, and 8, a half day of PD for administrators, and this is all before school starts. And then the October PD day would be used for a strengthening PD session. Amplify themselves also provide coaching, so they do some coaching which involves classroom observation, so we go on some learning walks, and then we build the PD based on evidence that we've collected, feedback we collect during their professional learning communities. So we have a rough draft of a plan. It kind of depends on approval of the curriculum, getting the grant, and then being able to assemble the PRISM Curriculum Council to do the work of making the implementation plan. Does that answer your question?
Ms. Landers.
What, if anything, is the trickle-down impact of a new curriculum at 6, 7, 8 on lower grades? You know, because now it's a whole new transition, right, from what teachers were previously doing between grades 5.
It had always been different. What happened in K-5 looked different than what happened in 6,
Right,
7, and 8.
Right.
So I don't know that there's a trickle down. We're also the K-5. I have a K-5 committee meeting right now that, fingers crossed, we'll have have made a decision this Thursday on what we'd like to pilot for next year. There's no way to funding to do K-8, like, that's a lot of money, and it's a huge investment, not just of money, but of resources, human resources within the district to do it well. It's not something you want to rush through. So the K-5 is in the process, the same exact process that 6 through 8, but a bigger committee.
Does Amplify have a K-5?
They do, and they did look at it.
Okay. Just, you know, anything we can, I'm always interested in anything we can do that sort of reduces the number of transitions between different programs, and, you know, who knows if they'll choose Amplify or not for K-5.
They look very different. Reading, especially in the K-2 reading foundational skills, what the K-2, 3, 5, and 6, 8, the goals that exist within those spans are different. Your K2, right? So you're teaching, so what it looks like in K2 is very different than what it looks like even in 3, 5.
I mean more sort of logistically in terms of what our teachers have for materials and resources, and working with the same company, the same website, the same material. You know, I know that the substance is very different, but if there's, okay.
It's somebody like me that will be working with multiple. If K-5 chooses something else, I'll be managing multiple platforms. As a teacher, they'd have that one. What 6, 8 uses, they wouldn't be involved in, because they'd have their own platform at their grade level. That make sense?
It does. I guess this comes from a feeling like we've been very disjointed in in curriculum, and I'm hopeful for,
Well,
smooth
use the example K-5
transitions
math,
and
6-8 math. They're different programs.
They are, yeah. Yeah. All right, thank you.
We go down the line, I think, Mr. Martin, and then we'll go down to Mr. Morris.
In when the criteria considering which program you were going to adopt, does Amplify allow, I guess, how strictly regimented is it? Yeah, I mean, does it allow
There's
teachers
flexibility within
to
it.
be teachers? Does it
Yes.
allow personalities to show that teachers
Yes.
be able to be, to use creativity and be able to present lessons in a way to further engage the students?
There's
in addition
options
to
available. It's making sure implementation is key. The resource can be 5-star stellar. If it's not implemented the way it's intended, you won't get the results that you're hoping for. So while there's flexibility within the lessons, there's an expectation that the scope and sequence will be followed. It's built for a reason. The lessons build on one another.
Sure.
So the units go in the order they go in. There's
Right.
switching them around.
Right, but we
But
just-
using
but-
your own language that yes.
Yeah, but we don't necessarily, we're not hiring automatons to
No,
stand there
no.
and, and read out the book. It's
Right,
just,
right.
we want teachers to be teachers and be comfortable teaching. So we want them to,
Yes.
we want their personality there.
Yes.
And you've mentioned the grant. If we get the grant, what if we don't get the grant? What, aside from the money, how does that affect?
The implementation planning will still occur. I'll work with Amplify because they have a team that does that as well. This is additional support from the Department of Ed. The vendor that we're looking, that we've been working with, they could be somebody that we partner as well with. I mean, it's an additional cost and it's significant. So that's a decision that would have to be made moving forward if we didn't get the grant. If we get the
Okay.
grant, Desi will pay for it.
And I'll let Dr. Smith comment as well. I know when we did our budget, we did approve in our columns for other stuff, but I know we may have specific feedback budget-wise. Perfect.
Okay.
Okay.
And my train of thought derailed, so I'm going to pass
Sorry.
it along.
Mr. Morris.
Perhaps I can provide a caboose on your train of thought. It seems to me that you've outlined a way of organizing the prompts so the distractions and disassociation that comes with some, at least in my day, traditional lecturing type of teaching, which is not really teaching because it doesn't have the spark of creativity. You've outlined something that looks like it's going to be an answer to the soup of content that is given to children. As an adult writer, I wish I had had more structure, and therefore I support the idea of the work you're doing.
Thank you.
Mr. New.
Thank you. So the K-5 group is aware of what the 6-8 group has decided. And are they now basing their decision upon that
They're
decision?
basing their decision on what's best for their students.
And what level of thought or consideration has been given to the sequencing K through 8? I mean, are they thinking about
Well, it's the
what?
same thing as all the curriculums we're looking at are aligned to the standards, the grade level standards. That's our focus, is being sure it's aligned vertically. How it's
Okay.
presented can vary from publisher to publisher, but it's standards aligned, that it measures student progress. So there's elements in there, like in K2, making sure that the reading foundational skills, the phonics, is clearly laid out. It's systematic. It's not something you see in 3-5, or certainly not 6 through 8. So there's a different lens because what the students are learning at those grade levels are different.
Is
They're
it common to
foundational.
have, if potentially the K-5 group elects to go with a different program, is it common for two different programs to be utilized in that
Yes.
manner?
When I surveyed districts around the Cape, often K-5 or K-6, depending on how their schools are aligned, have a different resource or program than the upper grades. Sometimes K2 is 1, 3, 5 can be, I mean, it can be as separated as you need it to be based on the needs identified.
With the 6-8 program that is selected, what assessments do they have during the course of the year to give the opportunity to reflect upon the skill sets that the students have achieved by particular points in the year?
There's a variety of assessments. There's built-in exit tickets for many of the lessons. There's end-of-unit projects. There's some diagnostic benchmarks along the way. There's a variety of assessments that are all standards aligned and report out progress for each student on all of those standards. So that teacher at a glance, administrators at a glance can see where the kids are at, what standards need to be reinforced, what standards have been met and they're already proficient at. So it's nicely aligned. It's clear to see without any guessing. It does a lot of that work for them. There's an AI component for the writing piece. So when students write, say it's an essay, there's an AI component that will give them immediate feedback based on the rubric, points for them to consider in their editing and revising, and then the teacher can go in, make comments, and then the final grading would happen by the teacher.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Glenn.
So I don't understand the process, and I look at things as the macro view. I'm not a professional or a former professional teacher. I leave it up to the professionals. I would like to see from the macro view down from the assistant superintendent for curriculum. I'd like to hear those ideas, but I'm so uncomfortable, like I don't even feel qualified to make a vote on this because, you know, my old concern would be lessons learned from things that were unsuccessful, and that's why we're moving this way. The rationale, that the proof is in the pudding. That's not obfuscating the fact that our job is student achievement. I just don't feel qualified to be the one to make the decision, but I would like to hear the rationale, and maybe Ms. Lopes and the superintendent can comment on their support. I want to be supportive. I just, I want to see the rationale.
Dr. Smith.
All right, I got a bunch of notes here. If I miss somebody's, please let me know. Sorry, so actually I'll pick up where Mr. Glynn left off. So just pulling the policy, so just to clarify what the committee's voting on specifically. So just paraphrasing the policy, the school committee will rely on the professional staff to design and implement instructional programs in the course of study and will forward the educational goals to the district. The superintendent will have the authority to approve new programs and courses of study, blah, 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 blah. So what the committee is actually voting on tonight is the 5-year contract. We can't enter into a contract with Amplify because it's entering into a 5-year contract with the company to provide us with the materials, online licensing, et cetera. That's ultimately what the curricular decision is the superintendent and my designees, right? So just to clarify sort of what the differentiation between, and if you look, the motion is ultimately to enter into a contract with the company. And then sort of look at some of the other things that were discussed. So, and only just because this is my area of expertise in my previous job. So it is not uncommon to have some breaking point around curricular material. And it is, what we're talking about here is a resource. And it's a fine line, and I actually had Ms. Santini just pull that slide. I probably shouldn't have had you pull that slide because I was trying to keep it succinct. But the difference between a resource and your curriculum is a fine distinction, but it is an important distinction in that your curriculum is the alignment of the topics and the ideas that you're covering over a course of a year, and the resource is the thing that you're using to deliver that. So what we're determining here is the resource which we're going to use, and these resources are aligned to the standards, and the standards are very important. So if we make a decision ultimately, and by we I mean the team, I'm not a part of the team, so it's I shouldn't use the we. If they ultimately make a decision to make a different K-5 decision, and there are plenty of good reasons to make a K-5, different K-5 decisions. Some Ms. Santini already outlined. Some of it is better because there's the old expression, right? Jack of all trades, master of none. In my experience, I have not found a good curriculum resource provider who's really, really good K-12, right? Some of them are really good in early programming. Some of them are really good at post-sec because that's where they started, and now a lot of them expanded into the market. You know, they start, their first thing that they developed was a high school program, and now they've started to expand downwards. Or they first started in the early spaces, whether they're early literacy folks or they were early math folks, and then they built up. But they had an area that they started, and that was really their jam, for lack of a better expression. So understanding their area of expertise and where they're really good, and then they kind of fade. And then other things you have to consider too, like scheduling, right? A high school, middle school schedule, and the amount of time you actually have to get through a full curriculum piece. It's roughly 60 minutes at the high school, 60 minutes at the middle school for a full period of math and ELA. And much longer chunks of time at the elementary spaces. Again, depending on whether intermediate's a little bit different than the K3s or pre-K3s. But all that has to be considered when you're selecting and what is it designed for. So if it's not designed, I remember having this in my last district, we were looking at originally a K-5 implementation, but what we needed, and our school district broke at 4th grade. It became middle school at 5th grade. Middle school schedule ran very much like our middle school schedule ran. They needed 90 minutes to run the lessons. We had 60 minutes in the schedule. We weren't redesigning the whole middle school schedule, so we instead implemented that curriculum at K-4 and had to make a different decision from 5 up. So these things are realities that become part of the curriculum implementation. And then also sort of going to both what Mr. Martin and Ms. Landers were talking about, it's a fine line between, so we need, where we really need the consistency is horizontal or vertically and also horizontally. When we don't have a consistent curriculum resource that we're using, and you have individual teachers making decisions that they have to be making because they're all professionals, they're all making professional decisions. I saw a piece of research one time that said if you taught all the standards in the depth in which they're supposed to be taught, you would need something like 410 days to teach them. Right? So what happens is teachers make decisions. They have to. Every year, they're making decisions on what to emphasize and what to cut. And if they're individually making those individual decisions in their individual classrooms, then, if we're all teaching 4th grade and we're individually making those decisions in 4th grade, then we have, we got 7 people sitting on this side of the table? We got 7 people making 7 different decisions. And all those kids then move up to 5th grade, and they get reshuffled, and they've got 5th grade classrooms that have kids that have been shuffled that all the 4th grade teachers made different decisions. A unified curriculum, a unified set of curriculum resources allows for allows for similar experiences for our kids. Now, do individuals bring their personality? That's the art of teaching. But the idea of a unified curriculum is that I show up on Monday with the spine of my curriculum already decided for me. I don't have to decide how am I going to teach, I don't know, adverbs. Not a great example, because they've given me that. What I have to figure out is how am I going to make this work for the 20 kids that are sitting in front of me, or actually really the couple of unique learners that are sitting in front of me. How do I adjust this for those couple of unique learners, or how do I bring my personality to it? And the conversations we're having now that we're in like the second or third year, depending upon the school, in math is if a teacher's making a decision that's outside the curriculum or making purposeful decisions within it, because oftentimes even within the curriculum resource, there's more in there that the teacher can use, right? They provide you with, these resources are so rich now, they provide you with all these great questions and you can't use them all. So then you're making decisions on which question am I going to ask? Which one of these activities am I going to choose? Which of these warm-up activities am I going to use? And so now when our principals and assistant principals are going in to do observations, and the principals and assistant principals can pull up the teacher's manual just the same as the teacher, then they're having purposeful conversations with the teachers around, well, why did you make that decision? And if you didn't choose the question that's a higher order thinking question that's in the resource, well, then why did you make that decision? And the question that you substituted for, did it maintain the same level of thinking rigor that we want for the kid in the question, right? So that's the purpose of having a consistent set of high quality resources. And then the grant question. So the grant is one funding source which we're hoping, and it's going to pay for a good chunk of it, plus it comes with all the implementation resources. And the district has a revolving account which will fund the entire project, which we can tap into if we need to. It's left over from so the district used to be a reading recovery district. We stopped reading recovery going into this year. Going back, and I had to do a little bit of digging sort of into the history here, but the district was largely, I guess the simplest way to say it is like we were like the fiscal agent for a regional group of reading recovery school districts, right? So when reading recovery was really, really big, it's been, I think, I'm not sure if there's any other reading recovery district, especially since the governor cut it. I know we were one of the last ones. There might still be another one out there somewhere, but there definitely aren't a lot left. But when reading recovery was really big, there were like these, I don't know, they had a name, like the groups, right? We were, I don't know, whatever. I'm getting stuck on the wrong detail. There were these groups, and we had a lead teacher that was that not only provided professional development for our teachers, but also provided professional development for teachers from other school districts. And and so those districts would pay their grant money to us. We would hold their grant money, and we would run professional development, et cetera, et cetera. Anyways, so over the years, DY didn't spend down all their portions of the money, and that account has grown and grown and grown, and it's a revolving account, so the money can sit in there, right? And so over the life of this revolving account, it is sat there. So instead of last year, when I knew we were going to end reading recovery heading into this year, instead of spending that account all the way down, I knew we were going to be in this boat, so I didn't. I sat on it and waited for this moment, and so now we have, if the state comes through with a grant, it can pay up to 50% of the implementation costs. So some of this is going to be used anyways, and then we'll have more to support either the K-5 implementation or years 2 and 3 of the implementation of this. But we do have another funding source. If the grant doesn't come through, there's enough in here to cover the entire cost. I think that answers everybody's stuff. If I missed something, please let me know.
Not seeing anybody with any other questions, I'd like to make a motion. I move to enter into a 5-year license agreement with Amplify for the provision of a grades 6 through 8 ELA curriculum.
We have a motion and a second. Do we have any other further questions? Seeing none. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstained?
I'm going to abstain.
So we have 6 yeses and one abstain. Okay. Next, we have discussion on Station Avenue Elementary School gymnasium dedication.
All right. Just give me 1 second for a sip of water. Okay. So I had sent the committee last Friday, the policy, which you do have a copy of in your packet, as well as this policy then also has the procedures as a separate attachment to it. Tonight is, as I have understood and interpreted the policy, it sort of looks like to me it has to be a three-phase approach. So this would be the first read. So for a little background for the public, sorry, a group from Station Avenue Elementary School would like to dedicate the gymnasium to Patricia Watson, a former educator, or in the name of Patricia Watson, a former educator at the Station Avenue Elementary School. And so that group of educators has formed a small little committee, and they have submitted, which the committee has in their packet, information which follows the guidelines which largely just follows the structure of the, I guess for lack of a better word, sort of the qualifications for what somebody needs to meet in order for a naming. They've used that as a structure for submitting to the committee. So tonight is a first read. And then what would need to happen next is the committee would need to set a date for the public to be able to come and comment on this. So it would be a time to invite the folks who put this together to come and speak to it. Anybody who thought it was maybe a bad idea to come and speak to it, but anyways, it'd be sort of like a public hearing to the naming. And then the third meeting would be then when we would put a motion for you. I'm supposed to recommend a motion, and then the committee takes a vote about whether or not they want to move the naming forward of the gymnasium in this particular case or not. So sort of as a timeline perspective, that would be your first meeting in June, potentially, would be when you could have the public hearing, and then the second meeting in June would be when you'd have the motion for a vote. And that is what I got on this, and happy to answer any questions.
Any questions from the committee? Mr. Glenn?
Did the policy committee, have we updated this recently, or when was the last time we reviewed this?
I don't know if there's a date on this policy, but it has not been reviewed in a couple of years.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions? Ms.
So
Landers?
just to make sure I understand, so, at this point, we've all got this information. This will be on an agenda at an upcoming meeting for public and whoever put this together and public to come and comment on this. And at that point, we can also provide our input on it, and then depending on the outcome of that, there would be a motion at another meeting.
So I think if I understand the policy correctly, I think I would need a motion tonight for you to put it on the next. I didn't write you one, so I apologize. But I would need somebody to move for your next meeting for there to be a public hearing on this proposal.
Yeah, it says at a time determined by the school committee, members of the school district community and the public will be invited to appear before the school committee to speak on the. All right, so I'd like to make a motion that this be placed on an upcoming agenda for comment.
I'll second that.
We have a motion and second. Any further questions? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstain? So I will get together and we will add this to our upcoming agenda for a public hearing, and we'll make sure appropriate announcements are made for that. Thank you. I turned my page. Next on the agenda is a superintendent evaluation. So the superintendent evaluation has been submitted to all of the committee. Typically, for those in the public who are unaware, the superintendent has goals each year. They are presented to the committee. The committee approves those goals, and throughout the year, the superintendent provides documentation or evidence of status of those goals, and at the end of the year and throughout the year, the committee has a evaluation that we individually do. The individual evaluations are submitted to the chair and the secretary. of the school committee, the recording secretary, and then a cumulative evaluation report is provided. This report that's here is an end of cycle summative evaluation report. This includes the goals that are meant, what the ratings were, and comments from the committee. So how it worked was all of the scores were given a numerical number for each of the questions. The numerical number was then divided by the 7 members, and that's how the scores for each of the levels were met. All of the comments were then submitted as well, and then a cumulative story was written based on the comments from all of the members. So what we have in front of us, Dr. Smith, is the summative evaluation report for the superintendent. We'll go through, we won't read every single thing, but we'll read the scores and review some of the comments. On step 1, it assesses the progress towards the goals. The first one was the professional practice goal. The options are did not meet, some progress, significant process, met or exceeded, and you received the score of met. For student learning goals, the same criteria, you also received a goal of met. And then district improvement goals, you also received the grade of met. On step 2 assesses performance on standards. The things that were rated here were unsatisfactory, needs improvement, proficient, or exemplary. On standard 1 for instructional leadership, you received the score of proficient. For standard 2 management and operations, you received the score of proficient. For the standard 3 family and community engagement, you received the score of exemplary. And standard 4 professional culture, you received the score of proficient. On step 3, it discusses the overall summative performance based on steps 1 and 2. The options are unsatisfactory, needs improvement, proficient, or exemplary, and you receive the score of proficient. These are just some of the comments that were shared throughout the committee. Dr. Smith is recognized as a highly effective, data-driven leader who has made substantial progress across several key areas of the district leadership. He has used data strategically through learning walks, surveys, and professional learning communities to improve instructional leadership and student outcomes. His guidance is empowered administrators implement standards-based instruction aligned with state and local exceptions, leading to visible improvements, particularly in the K-5 curriculum. He sets high expectations of teachers' quality, promotes inclusive evidence-based instructional practices, and continually monitors progress while supporting staff development. It goes on to discuss some of the tools you've used and things that you've done to enhance our district. On the next page, again, discuss performance goals. The first one, professional practice goals that we rated were your fiscal systems and your managing conflict. And these are in reference to utilizing information gathered during the entry process. On this page, the things that were scored were did not meet, strong, some progress, significant progress, met or exceeded. You met. Again, for student learning, these are all the ones that are on the front page, right? So we've already... This is the backup, sorry. This is the backup to the first 2 pages. On page 4, it also discusses the same guidance on there.
Right, these are the individual scores on
Yeah.
each focus indicator, and then once you take that data from the focus and put it all and color it all together, that's how you get the score on page
Yes.
1. So right, this is the backup. That
So I'm reading the
proves
same
up
thing twice. The
numbers
first,
on
the
on
first
page
2
1.
pages
But yeah,
are
no,
a
it's-
cumulative of all the backup.
I'm sure Mark won't mind if we keep reading good things about him, but we don't have to.
I
yeah.
will allow Mark to read all the individualized comments, but the first 2 pages, explain all the backup that's followed.
Page 6.
Yeah, something to highlight. The area that we marked you as exemplary. There's some great discussion about. Dr. Smith has made notable strides in improving district communication and community engagement. A key achievement, which we've definitely seen a great thing, was your decision to create the Communications and Community Resource Coordinator role, a forward-thinking move aimed at streamlining and centralizing communication with families by the broader community. Definitely in line with our goals and definitely with bringing everything from the communication side to us, to the communication side to the public, from adjusting how we look at social media and continuing our goal. The district is now better positioned to share its success and foster stronger relationship with the community. The whole idea that we talked about last year of us telling the story rather than other people telling the story. Make sure there's nothing else. And it just talked about the ways that you communicated a variety of different ways to a variety of different stakeholder groups, whether it was weekly bulletins, your superintendent's message, your regular emails significantly enhanced the district's ability to share its story and maintain its transparency. Doing the conversations you had in multiple languages, having options for people, overall showed how you're a highly effective communicator whose ongoing efforts to keep staff, families, and school committee members informed, aligned, and engaged. Open it up to the committee for any other feedback or questions.
Oh, I was just going to move that we approve
You can move to approve, then we can do question after.
the superintendent's report as written.
Second.
The motion is second. Any other questions or feedback? Seeing none, do we need a roll call vote for this? No. So all those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstained? So thank you, Dr. Smith, for a wonderful year. We look forward to continuing the success of the district and sharing our story. So thank you. Give you a few minutes to comment as well.
I appreciate it. I appreciate the feedback. I look forward to taking some time and reading this in some detail and looking for opportunities to grow. I believe. I know I've shared a couple different times that one of my core values is centered around growth. So I look forward to looking for opportunities in here to grow. I saw a couple of areas already, and I've already started thinking about next year's goals. I actually was meeting with Leela to think about some other ways to extend community engagement. Did a lot of listening last year, and this year was more centered around acting, and now need to get back sort of into a listening phase again next year, or at least having listening be a better part of what I'm doing next year. So anyways, starting to think about goals for next year. So this will be helpful in driving goals for next year as well. So I very much appreciate the feedback and look forward to spending some time. And I've, when I was sitting with Dr. Gilson while you all were in executive session, just mentioning how great of a committee you all are to work with. I don't talk about it as much anymore because I'm in the second year of it, but still in the new superintendent induction program. And so just listening to other superintendents and trying to think about a sanitary word to use, the consternation that some of them have with their committees, and just the trust that you all put in me, the support that you provide the district, and the way that you all work together as a committee. I know you all, it's just the way that you operate. So I think sometimes, I don't want to speak for any of you, but I think sometimes it's taken for granted a little bit, because I hear other superintendents talk about just like infighting within their committees, and it's not that you don't it's not like you're all don't disagree on different topics. That's supposed to be. You're a committee of 7. You're supposed to see things differently. But the way you disagree and the way that you move forward as a united group is not universal across the state, I will just say. And as a superintendent, I very much appreciate that. I say I have seven bosses that I know I have support of, and that support me in moving the work forward. So I very much appreciate it. And I know I put it at the end of each of my messages, but continue to reach out whenever you have questions. Call, email, text. I will answer. That's it.
Thank you. Mr. Martin.
I feel like I'd be remiss if I just didn't point out a couple of things that really kind of stood out to me. First of all was the budget season. The fact that we lost a key member of the who was involved in creating the meat and potatoes of that budget, and you essentially had to take on that role plus your own role and continue to. And we came out with a very smooth budget season in relation to previous years. So so kudos to you. We never saw you sweat. It was a good time to be had by all. So so that was great. And the fact that and I've said this before, the atmosphere between the DY school system, the town of Dennis, and the town of Yarmouth, the communication that you had, how early you started the communication, and you kind of had a plan in place, and you followed the roadmap of your plan, and you were able to kind of get more people on board. You got to open the communication lines. You got them to. There were no surprises on their part, so there was no pushback. Really on their part. So, it's like, okay, this is that, these are the numbers, this is what we're anticipating, and then so it wasn't as big a bite for them to swallow. So I feel like it was more easily accepted, and that goes a long way to speaking to your communication skills and your transparency with the towns, leading over also into thinking about having the communication director. I don't remember the thing, but and kind of how we're transitioning and all lines of communication go through, and we're going to tell our own story. And there's been a lot of initiatives on your part that you've mentioned, that you've brought up, that are that I don't think we would have thought about, quite frankly. So I think it's it's very much a fresh perspective. I think you've done very well, and and we haven't really seen you laid an egg yet. So we'll wait and see, we'll wait and see, because it's going to happen eventually. But it's how you handle that. Well, that'll come out smelling like a rose too. So so congratulations. Thank you so much for being here and being a part of our community. And I'm waiting to see what happens next year. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Mr. Glenn.
Yeah, Glenn took a couple of things out, but those were actually, in our goals, that communication and hiring that communications director was key, but it was part of our goals, part of your goals and our goals, which meshed very nicely. But one of the things that I was hot on that was part of our goals was the school security and the safety. And I felt all along that I didn't have to say anything because you were doing it, that the progress was going there, and it was like, I don't have to think that is he going in the direction that I envisioned or that we envisioned, that I could hear it before I even had to ask. And I kind of came up with just a quick, AAA. All of your goals and practices were ambitious, they were actionable, and they were achievable. And I think if you didn't, some of them are incomplete because they were very ambitious, but that's what we were looking for. So I appreciate it. I look for more things to come, and we're always looking for improvement. We don't rest on our laurels, and we want to go forward. So, but thank you very much.
Thank you.
Ms. Bemis.
I guess for me, it's, that abstract of thinking after the first year you publish your findings, and that abstract of what do you mean dolphins aren't all swimming in the same pod. So I now can see the direction and how we're beginning to move. I see it among your leadership team. I see it in these presentations. I see how that theory is going into sort of a culture or a practice that ultimately is going to benefit all of our students. And for that work and that journey, thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, and I can't, and that's an important piece, right? So so much of what you represented here is the work of others, right? I have a leadership job, but I can't do it if other people aren't doing their parts of it. And we just had a large meeting. I meet with the entire team once a month, and I just did a little like whip around, like what is everybody grateful for, like in the middle of the meeting, and I had to tell them all that like I'm grateful for them because we have come a really long way. I have to pause every now and then because I'm always like, and it's ambition's good, and sometimes I'm so forward thinking that I don't, like, it's a flaw from a leadership standpoint that I don't pause to like thank people for everything that we've always done, whether we've already done. So I have to pause and be like, okay, so what have we accomplished? And we have accomplished a lot, and by we I mean like they've done a lot, and so a lot of this stuff here, it's not me, it's we, right? So a lot of it has been, yes, maybe I said, hey, we need to get this thing done, but then other people are really responsible for executing. My job, it's been a shift. My job isn't really the doer job. My job is the thinker job, is the supporter job, it's the strategy job, and it's the leader job, but other people then have to execute things in order for it to ultimately come to be. So I have a lot of support from a great team. And my job is, to your point, to get them all moving in the same direction. But then other people have to then get those things done. And I have a great team that helps me get all those things done.
Ms. Landers.
Echo a lot of the comments and sentiments you've already heard. I think that two of the things that I'm most appreciative of is, one of them is your use of data and research in your decision making, and that's you'll read that throughout, I think, the evaluation, and that's one of the things that from the beginning I felt you brought to this job, and you've continued to show that you've got the information and the evidence to back things up, and the attorney in me always appreciates that. So the other thing is that I ask a lot of hard questions, which also may be, but I try not to cross-examine people too much, but I know it happens. I ask you a lot of hard questions in meetings and in emails and text messages, and you always give me an answer that answers my question, and it may not be what I hoped or what I wanted, and there may be, a lot of work still to be done, but I really appreciate always getting an answer to my question and not just being sort of, things being brushed under. So those are, in addition to everything else, I wanted to highlight those two things.
Mr. Morris.
You're good. Keep it up.
I've never been so grateful for a short Phil Morris speech.
I was going to say, Phil, that is the shortest conversation I've ever had with you.
He must be hungry or waiting for a ride. So I'm going to take that and continue. He's looking at the clock. He's waiting for a ride. So we'll continue. School subcommittee representatives, liaison report. School committee liaisons to select board. I know in the town of Dennis we had an election. Welcome back, Jenny. And then the town of Yarmouth has its annual town election tomorrow. Polls are open from 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. Anything else from the town relating to the schools, Mr. Glenn? Well, that's probably most important.
There's an override for on the ballot, not anything to do with us, but it is on the ballot, so it is important to vote. There's a school committee position, I won't say who it is, and there's a housing authority and 3 candidates for 2 positions on the select board, so get out and vote.
Small towns are very important, and town elections are very important. Town meetings are very important. If you want your voice heard, that's the only way that's the best way to make it heard is by going out and vote. Mr. Glenn reminds me last election was 13% at the polls. And I'm sure there was 97% people complaining about something. So if we can get more people out to vote, then your voice is heard. That's the strongest way, so thank you. Next, superintendent's report.
All right, thank you very much. Let's start with donations and acknowledgments. So first, donation. Want to just a big thank you to the Andrea Holden Foundation. They made a generous donation of 15 gift cards, $100 gift cards to Shaw's Supermarket to the Emmy Small community. This is, I meant to go back and look it up. This is either the third or the fourth donation by the Andrea Holden Foundation of similar to our schools. I know at Lee Station Ave and Ezra Baker, I've seen similar donations. I just can't remember if there was one also to this school. So just, I've said it before, I'll continue to say it. Our community is super generous to our schools. This is just another example of that, just giving in a way to be able to support our schools, what they do, to be able to support our families, and just super thankful for our community and the way that they give to us above and beyond. Next, for acknowledgments. So next meeting it'll be our annual meeting for honoring our district's retirees. It's an opportunity for us to celebrate those who've given so much to DY. So there'll be a reception prior to starting at 6 o'clock. So there'll be some light refreshments served. And then we'll start with a formal recognition at the beginning. It'll be early on the agenda at the beginning of the meeting. So just for planning purposes at the next meeting, an important acknowledgement. And then I also wanted just to acknowledge one of our staff members, one of the members of our leadership team, Miss Kristen Dwyer, and I lost my email. Oh, here it is. She and some other nurse directors, leaders from across the Cape were responsible for organizing a professional development a few days ago, actually last week, on Munchausen by proxy and how it presents in schools. And I've got some feedback from different staff members on just how impactful and important it was for staff to be able to participate in this, and really how high quality it was. And so again, was not, nothing that I directed. She was completely self-initiated on her own, again, with her nursing colleagues, and it's getting really great positive feedback. So I just wanted to acknowledge that work being done by a member of our leadership team. All right, next, the DYRSD field update. I just drove by there on my way here just to check on the progress, but if you do drive by, you will notice the project work has started. It started last week, and we're in the phase of and you'll see them if you go by. The big rolls of the turf field are coming up, and so that work will be ongoing for pretty much from now until the end of school. So they'll continue to roll up the old turf, remove the old turf. They'll take out the underpads, and do a lot of work around the edges. And in that process, during those phases, there also will be testing done by our current designer, by the I just lost the word, by our engineer that we hired to do the third-party testing. This is all sort of connected to our complaint around the original design. And then once school is out, then we're full bore with all the heavy equipment. And that's purposeful so that the real heavy movement of all the trucks, and they keep telling me the number, and it's probably because it's such a big number that I just don't want to hold on to it, about the amount of truckloads that have to come in and come out. And they're like really big trucks, I guess. Like they're not like the normal 18-wheelers. I don't know. Again, I'm not a heavy. I'm not a, was a jack of all trades, master of none. I'm definitely not a master in heavy equipment. So, but the big excavators will be in, and they'll be moving out because they have to take out all the sub-base material, and then they have to bring in all new sub-base material. So that'll start, and they're purposely waiting until, and they're going to get everything ready until, so after June 17th, after the last day of school, then they'll start that, because they just don't want all that. Even though they're coming in through the high school and all that, they just don't want to they know it's best not to do that while school's in session. Yeah. Oh, sorry. Through the chair.
Do you know what happens to the turf that they're cutting up and rolling up and taking away?
I don't know exactly what happened. So I know some outside group inquired about a piece of it. But
Yeah, a lot of
we
people
don't-
have asked me, like, can they buy a piece of turf?
So we don't own it. It's part of the RAD owns it as part of the project. So I know one person has contacted us. I've given them RAD's contact
Got it.
information. It's, from what I understand, like super heavy because it has all of the
Oh, all the little
the
pellets
material
that, yeah.
in it as they roll it up. So like it's like forklift head. Like if you see the machinery that they're moving around with, it's like super heavy in the rolls. But again,
But-
we don't own it anymore. Once they
So if
take
someone
it away.
was interested, they'd have to talk to Rad about
Yeah,
it. Okay.
yeah, they could contact Rad Sports, and again, we can give them the contact information. But it's we as part of the whole scope of the project, all the demo material, Rad owns.
Mr. Glynn.
Oh, sorry.
So, are we gonna get, I know you're gonna update us as it goes along, but is PMA, is the building committee still like reviewing that stuff? Are they meeting?
So it's with the TPC. So the building committee, and I'd have to go. It was before my time. Moved everything to a small group. So there's a couple of members from the building committee that approve any decisions, blah, blah, blah. So the school committee had to make the motion to go back out to bid. The school committee had to approve RAD. But now the project sits back with the TPC. So there's a couple of members from the original building committee that sit on the TPC. There's a couple of members from the public, myself, our facilities director, John, our OPM. I'm trying to remember who else is on there. Now they're not part of the TPC, but then the other people who were at those meetings, because now we have weekly meetings on this. So then there's the contractor, RAD, and then OPM, and who am I forgetting? Oh, the designer. And the engineer. Yeah, why am I stuck on that word? Are all attend these weekly meetings on Zoom every week. But anyways, yeah, that group that would be if we had to do a change order. Right now, we haven't made any changes, but if we had to do, that would be the group that would approve it. Any more questions on that? All right, moving along. So then the last item I have is school committee reorganization. So at the next meeting, we'll have finished all the elections. So by the regional agreement, the next meeting will have to be for school committee reorganization. So I'll open the meeting, and then just to get us through the election of the chair. Then once the chair takes over, then the meeting resumes. The chair takes back over, and the meeting resumes as normal. What I'd like the committee to consider and think about is specifically the treasurer position. At the last meeting, the school committee voted to approve the adoption of the job description, which we will get posted, and I'm hoping by the second meeting in June to be able to present a candidate for you to appoint to that position, and at the same time also give you a motion to move the position effective July 1 to that position, and i.e. that new person. So what we really will have is a window from June 2nd until June 30th where we need the school committee to hold on to the treasurer position. That position has to be bonded. There's a whole bunch of paperwork that goes with it to really change, to go through a whole other, and we've quite frankly, we've trained Ms. Landers on a process, which is getting us through where we are right now. From just a management standpoint on the leadership side, to try to reconnoiter all of that for 28 days, to make sure all our bills gets paid, payroll gets made, like all that stuff. I'm asking if the committee can consider, and there are options, depending upon, if
It's fine.
If you want to be chair, I think the
I will.
committee
I
can
will.
consider a
I will
dual
be the
role.
treasurer for as long as everyone elects me. I will be the treasurer for an additional 30 days or whatever is needed. No, you gotta wait till next time.
There's no motion.
You gotta wait till next time, but that's fine.
So-
That's fine. Nobody
so at our-
else should have the stress of transferring $1.5 million on their phone.
So at the next meeting, we will have a reorganization. Whoever is elected chair will run the meeting, and again, anything can happen. But yes, Mr. Glenn.
Just a point of order, or I don't know what it is, but is there a rule against, like, if we wanted to appoint Jenny, can she be the treasurer and another position?
She could have two roles. Yes.
Okay, sorry.
So that's possible for appointment. Yes. Okay.
That's it for me. Thank you.
Okay. So now we have school committee business, policy subcommittee. It looks like we have two policies for a second reading and vote.
Okay, so this is the second reading of these two policies, which we presented at the last meeting. Starting off with policy JRA-R, student records. This is the second reading. We essentially, as a reminder, the initial wording of it was very convoluted, made references, had it was very difficult read. So, in an effort to try to kind of streamline it, we condensed some wording, we changed some wording, we made it a lot more user friendly as far as language and as far as the layout of it, so to make it more easily digestible.
Okay.
I move that we approve policy JRA-R student records.
Okay. We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstained? Okay. Motion carries 7-0. Next one.
Next policy is policy KDB, the public's right to know. The top half of the page is the current policy, the way it's written. You'll see that there's a spot that is highlighted in yellow. That is the major change. The updated wording of the policy is the lower half of your page, outlined in bold.
We have a motion and a second. Any questions? All those in favor for policy KDB, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstain? That also carries 7-0. Thank you. Next is school committee meetings. As we see our crowd shrink, as we still see Phil Morris only had 3 words to say, one of the things that I wanted to bring up was the discussion of our start time of our meetings. We've been at 6:30 for I don't know how long. You could probably tell me. We do know that the one town meets at 4 p.m. One town usually meets at 5:30. I wanted the opportunity to open the discussion to the committee about possibly moving the meeting to 6 o'clock and get some feedback and discussion on our start time. So that's the purpose of that first part. So I open it up to any discussion. This would obviously be started in September, but go ahead, John. Mr. New.
I'm in favor.
Ms. Landers.
I like the 6:30. I work 3 jobs and I parent a teenager and have 2 dogs and a household and not to tell you my sob story, but to get everybody where they need to be and all the work done and people fed and all the things, sometimes it's challenging to get here even at 6:30. So, I mean, I can try to come earlier from time to time and, I do make it happen for executive session and things like that, but it would be tough for me, just,
Yeah,
unless someone wants to feed Jake dinner.
Yeah, part of the other discussion came into the administrative staff, the team, the students. The high school starts at 7 a.m. As most of our lives do, but being on property from 7 a.m. to possibly 9 p.m. And it's possible we could look at specific agendas and maybe adjust it. It's just hard to be inconsistent of what our start time was. You know, I've seen other committees that change their times, you know, and caught people off guard, and it can cause some trouble. I don't think our specific organization.
Whatever the majority.
Right. No,
you know,
I'm just giving some
yeah,
feedback
yeah,
also
yeah.
of the discussion of the time. It wasn't because I felt it works for me. It was because I think it's important to discuss things. You know, just because it is doesn't mean it should be. So that's why there's 7 of us here to discuss it. Mr. Martin.
I too have people to feed. I usually don't get out until like 4:30, and then travel time, making food, tending to the kids. I have 2 dogs as well, and there's a lot to do in a short period of time, and so I would be in favor of keeping it at 6:30 unless we're going into executive session, and as long as it doesn't happen that often. So I mean, I can make an exception and beg and plead for coverage, but yeah, I would be in favor of staying at 6:30.
Okay. Mr. Glenn.
I really empathize with them because I just got to feed me, and and that's a tough job. But I do a good job at it, as you can see. I don't know if it helps, if it's 15 minutes one way, if anybody. I'm totally neutral on it, and I empathize with those people having to do that. So, but the other thing is, I know in the summertime we do move the meetings back, right? So, I think we do that practice. We wouldn't obviously do those any earlier. But I just want to throw out, and maybe 15 minutes works, and maybe 15 minutes doesn't make a difference to them, because they're already cutting it tight. So,
Any comments or any other comments or feedback? Ms. Bemis.
I really can go either way, but I do feel for the students, and we're trying to increase student participation. It's 8:30. And I do feel that we have more staff attending our meetings and doing presentations. So whether we really think about the agenda to make sure that it's early and upfront, or consider another time. Maybe this summer we can all collectively think about that.
Ms. Landers.
Yeah, and I think, if we've got a long agenda, if during budget season, or, when we have a lot of presentations, from time to time, if the meeting is moved to 6, I know that's a little tough because it's inconsistent for the public, but I don't know that that's a major issue.
Is it okay
at this.
for you?
Right. So, if it's a long agenda, we need an extra half an hour, we can make it work, but,
Okay, I don't see any, huge consensus either way. I think this is something maybe we can revisit and continue to look at agendas and make, mindful changes if necessary ahead of time. Mr. Glenn.
I'm sorry, just on the topic of agendas, this is something that I've thought about that selectmen do. They actually have an agenda review, during their consent agenda, or before or after. They talk about those upcoming topics. And I think that might help us condense this. If we know what we're going to talk about, or we can plan out, we do an agenda review, one that gets everybody invested in what our future topics are going to be, as opposed to the chairman and the superintendent, just putting it, we have a discussion, and the superintendent and the chairman might say, yeah, I was thinking about that too. But just to have the topic of an agenda review previous to upcoming meetings, just an idea.
Thank you. And I'll put that on Dr. Smith to discuss with whoever the possible next chair is. Perfect. So we'll table that. We can be discussed again. But and the second part, as Mr. Glenn alluded to, was our summer workshop dates. When we looked at the calendar, we did the first Mondays of the month. which falls on Monday, July 7th and Monday, August 4th. Marilyn did remind me that some people may be going away for the July 4th weekend or week. I work on Cape Cod, so I don't get time off in July. It was Monday, July 7th and Monday, August 4th. And typically with workshops, we start at 5 p.m. And they're here in the conference room. So just looking for some feedback either way so we could book those dates. Mr. Glenn.
I agree with Marilyn. You know, people go away and a lot happens. So I would recommend the August
We're looking for one per month. So it seems like the August 4th date may work, and maybe we'll have to visit the August 7th date. Is that what you're stating?
Yeah.
Anyone else about the July 4th date?
I'm,
7th?
I'm not going away in July. So, I mean, both dates work for me.
I have no conflict as well.
So seeing none, we'll continue with the Monday, July 7th and Monday, August 4th at 5 p.m. Those topics will be worked upon with the superintendent, and I know we've looked at a couple.
Do you want one? I think last year one was a workshop and one was a business meeting, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, well, because one of them we did
think
with
the August-
Massey as a business meeting to discuss superintendent evaluation, how we
I think
did
that was the
process.
July meeting, if I remember correctly, and the August meeting was a business meeting. Get ready for the start of the year.
I mean, I guess it depends what business we actually have, if there's any regular business we need to take care of, but.
Yeah.
We think we worked on our vision statement and our goals.
I think there was approving my goals in
Right,
the August
our goals.
meeting.
Our goals, yeah, so.
Which I'll have ready again, because it helped to support the leadership team getting their goals ready, et cetera. So I'd like to keep that practice moving forward.
I think doing a July workshop and a Monday, August business meeting, I think we can work on that practice. If we have to change it for any reason, we can. Okay. So that's the guidance from there.
Okay, thanks.
Declare surplus. I have a memo from Mr. Ferris, Interim Assistant Superintendent for Finance and Operations. We have 5 vehicles that have outlived their usefulness pursuant to school committee policy. These vehicles should be declared surplus so they can be sold or otherwise disposed of. We have 3 special education transportation vehicles. We have 1 maintenance Ford Tracon van. We have 1 technology Ford Transit van. So I move that the above vehicles are declared surplus and disposed of by sale or appropriate means.
Second.
So all those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstained? Perfect. I don't know if John needed to make that motion, but I made it for him. So thank you, John. Consent agenda, which we have the gift certificates that were donated from Andrea Holden Foundation, and then the minutes from May 5th.
Move the consent agenda.
Second.
Motion is second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstained? Bills, requisition, and payrolls are here. Calendars, as we discussed, we have Memorial Day holiday on the 26th, which is next Monday. We have junior prom on June 2nd. We have retiree celebration at our next meeting at 6 p.m. The Dennis-Yarmouth Regional High School graduation is Saturday the 7th at 10 a.m. And then the last day of school is a half day on Tuesday, June 17th. So anyone looking to speak to public comment? Seeing none?
Motion to adjourn.
A motion and a second. All those in favor say aye. Aye.